Welcome to our discussion today about awareness, being yourself. We look forward to observing another interview, and here we have Brigitte Zueger. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much for the invitation. Brigitte Zueger has a dance school called Zueger and is especially an integrative dance and movement therapist for children and adults and much more, and she will tell us about it. Tell us who you are. Firstly, I would like to say something about the word dance school. I try to avoid this word, even though it is my dance school or institute. Zoe means life spirit or vitality, the power that evolves from oneself, and school is a term that scares me a little. So what do you call it then? Zoe dance. And in Zoe dance, there are different subsets. The Zoe energy through movement, that is everything that dance is. Although I also have to discuss what dance is exactly. It must also be defined. Zoe dance, energy through movement, and then there is dance and movement therapy. That's from the dance and movement therapy, which is psychotherapeutic treatment. And then there is the Zoe Kantenika Studio Basel. That is about the Kantenika method that I use for lots of embodiment work with a very correct anatomy. It is very interesting. We are also anatomy. The first question to you now, what does consciousness and being yourself mean to you? It's a question I pose to everyone to begin with, to transition into the topic. Well, consciousness is a big word. In studies, we still don't know what consciousness or awareness actually is. The big neurobiology experts have a few discussions about it. On the one hand, one can define it as a state, meaning I am aware that I am sitting here. But it can and is also a process. I can become more aware. Let me say, although this word is inconvenient, if I speak more philosophically, for me, awareness is more of a state or a coming into being. If I gain it, things have more meaning. So awareness and meaning are very close concepts. The deeper the awareness, the greater or more comprehensive the meaning. And that because through awareness I experience noticeably more. I would also say it's my experience and also my paradigm that awareness and experience are connected. And I, as a movement person, for me, experience is tightly connected to the body. So this triangle of awareness, experience, meaning, and also senses comes back to experience. In the end, we have the presence, awareness, along with everything else I have mentioned. And it has a lot to do with presence. Pure awareness is also pure presence. Being in the moment. How did you come across movement and dance? Let's say dance. I will define dance first, so we will know what we are talking about. The word dance has different meanings in different cultures. Also through time, the 1920s, 1850, the 1400s, or even earlier to 3000 BC in Egypt and so on. Every culture has given dance a different meaning. In our culture, it is a very goal-orientated culture. That is why, as dance, we understand the virtuous movement, perfect movement, the movement that pulls us away from our bodies. Classical ballet, I hope no ballet dancers are listening now, is an antibody dance action. One shows ease. One actually shows that which is almost impossible. That's why classical ballet is important to us. However, the evolution of modern dance has given it a counterbalance, which started in the last century. Going back to what dance is, how we understand it. If I'm asked, what is a dance, and must I dance ballet, or go to dance therapy, must I do the waltz? Then I simply say, no, dance is experienced movement, which means when you cross the street and you experience the sounds and the other people coming towards you, then that is, in my eyes, a dance, because the movement is being experienced. And so it can be a normal gesture, and if you look on a stage and see very simple movements integrated into a choreography, and we are mesmerized, and that is because it is being experienced. Attention is brought to it, and the experience is one. It can also be very virtuous, and what makes a good dancer is when their virtuosity is experienced. That is a good dancer, not just someone who can leap well, but is also afraid. And us, as an audience, can experience that fear, and then that movement or dance by saying nothing or simply just, wow. It would be nice if we could stick to experience movement today, which for me is a synonym for dance. Now, back to your question. This was quite a dramatic story. After sitting in school for 12 years, I really realized I need to occupy myself with my body or I will die, which was quite existential. And thank goodness it was time for me to decide on a career path, and so I decided upon movement. I'm actually a gymnastics teacher, and that was it. However, afterwards I knew, even during my training, that dance was my thing. I had to gather up some money, and I went off to New York and studied dance. I knew I wanted to go somewhere. I wouldn't just learn the technique, and that it had to be better and more beautiful. In that time, I came across a dance teacher that had been a philosopher until the age of 40, and he taught us that when you go up onto your toes, that you shouldn't press on your tiptoes, but heighten the space in the room. Or when you open up your arms, that you open the space. And that made sense to me and was a form of experienced movement. And then I went to his old teacher, Alvin Nikolai, who was about 70 or 75 at the time, and it was amazing. The downside was that he was a very abstract person. For him, there was only time, space, shape, and motion, but there was no emotion. He always said, it's motion, not emotion, or expressing feeling. I learned that well and realized I can dance and stretch my body, but internally there was fear. So on the inside, there is something other than what's portrayed on the outside. It was my soul that was afraid to expand. I accepted it, but when teaching, I was doing a lot of improvised teaching. I realized that when people don't, it felt like if I didn't bring out their souls in the dance, they are all tense, and I wanted the dance and movement, and they had the opportunity to do so. I realized I had to bring their souls into the movement, and realized I had no means of doing that. I searched for 8 years, doing workshops here and there, and met a lot of people, and experienced a lot. And so I got the word dance therapy into my head, and realized that's how the soul comes to the body. At the same time, no, it wasn't. I did dance therapy training, but wait, what was important after returning from New York was to feel my emotions again, and that cost me 3 years of bioenergetics. I could do everything with my body, but I couldn't experience it. So it's like you were divided. No contact to feelings or to people. It was quite painful. Then I came upon dance therapy, and it was amazing. I searched for a while. I wanted to do therapy, a profound therapy theory, and not just a school with a few ideas. And so I came across humanistic psychotherapy and Hilarion Petzold, who developed integrative therapy, which is still amazing for me today. I always discover something new and what suits me, now that I'm getting deeper into neurobiology. Then the dancing, and I will be finished. The last awareness level. After dance therapy in 1994, I came into contact with light body work through a teacher who said, "Come, I will show you. I'm sure it will interest you." She was a dancer, and I was in her workshop, and I was in absolute awe of it. So it came from gymnastics and aesthetic movement, and the emotions and therapeutic use of dance therapy. Then in the subtle work, it was the time I started working in neurology, and neurology, head and awareness are also close. I could never begin anything with neurological theory. I pushed through it, and neurobiology is where I get my background information for awareness. Antonio Damasio, who is a neurologist and philosopher, Daniel Siegi, and many more who take the body or philosophy into neurology, which is also interesting. One of them continuously writes about philosophers and connects it to neuro-knowledge, and Daniel Siegel, who doesn't get through life without the body. It's good and makes sense, and is beneficial in theory and in practice. So we experience fear, and we're almost divided through certain dance from your feelings. Today you also sense fear. How is fear expressed in people, and what impulse do you have to work with them when you realize there is tension, fear, and retention? What do you do? You are addressing it already, and the physical symptoms or expressions. The retention and tension and fear is actually, as all emotions are, a basic emotion. Fear is a marker. It shows us something. It tells us, careful, danger. And when there is danger, hopefully I will hold myself back, or I will come into danger, something bad. And this is done by the nervous system. Or a reaction to flee from someplace is released through the muscles in the body. Conscious feeling, fear. These are good reactions and shouldn't be seen negatively. They must be taken seriously and must be used. If you ask me how I deal with it, in dance therapy, it's about the people who come to me. I must first be physically aware and feel and experience that they are holding something back. And many people don't realize that their steps are slowly done when I say, "Do you notice you are moving slower? Are you holding back?" And then, "I didn't notice, and I am holding back." For me, it's an indication that first we must feel at ease in the body. Do you use a specific type of music? I use all types and genres of music, anything I can get my hands on. It's not about the genre, but about whether it's gentle or has a certain rhythm. Are the instruments gentle, low, high? Is it subtle or powerful? Because I use those categories in the movement analysis and see what impulse the person has, or if they need a lot of space. What must be supported in a person helps me find music, which is why I use all types. Interestingly, Mozart is uncommon, and it is very spiritual, although it is very moving. It brings you out of your body, and I find that an absolute phenomenon, how it moves you. I always wanted to pursue it. It is very interesting. I think it's like you come out of your body and you listen to the music. There are many composers that can do that, but with Mozart, it's definitely like this. He captivates you. He doesn't let you out. It doesn't have rhythm as does hip-hop and such, but it's a lot stronger that he pauses and you think, what's happening to me? And you almost slip away. That is how I perceive it. This wandering off is what I was depicting before. And when you listen to Mozart, do you get the impression it makes you immediately happy? No, but it takes me to another world. Maybe it has to do with, what is it called? Metaphysically, maybe? Maybe it has something to do with synesthesia, that more pictures are generated than with other music. And maybe there is more to it. The person is inspired. And that inspiration must come from a special planet. Oh, it wouldn't stand out so much. And this fascination is exactly what moves you and brings you into the present, but doesn't let you into the movement. Exactly. Awareness and Mozart. Awareness is possible in many different ways. Self-loving also belongs to awareness, the strengthening of one's self-worth. I assume there are free movements that can also promote this in children. As I said before, I can't take awareness and body apart. Neurobiology confirms that for me, and naturally they have an instant impression because they are present and aware. They ask surprising questions sometimes. For me, it's an expression of awareness in the presence. Intuition comes with it, and obviously there is also the children's dance therapy section. I don't often work there, as children are very stressed characters. They do a lot, like tennis practice and this and that. So when I do a children's group, it is a lot harder to find a time that suits everyone compared to adult groups. I have little experience with that. For a while, after returning from America, I had a teaching opportunity at a rhythmic school, as it was called, and it was difficult. Now the educational system is different. But it was hard to get them to ease up because of all the trauma they had. They actually all needed psychomotoric bodywork. It was difficult. You mentioned the word trauma. Is it possible to get over trauma through dance and movement in adults or children? Trauma is about a big disassociation. And when you're able to come back to yourself, the body revisits that trauma. It is a loop in the brain from the lymphatic system. Respectively, the cortex is no longer connected to the lymphatic system. My experience with embodiment method works consequently with the skeletal muscles, the core, and posture muscles. Interestingly enough, it moves subtly into the anatomy. You have to learn a lot of anatomy. We often have anatomy tutorials with the students, and they enjoy it because they learn from it. This method goes deep and pure, and even goes deeper than emotions. My experience with neurology and all types of neurological illnesses, like Parkinson's, MS, this work that goes so deep works on a micro level, close to the spiritual movement, is the crux of it all. I'll say it is one emotionless but not experienceless. It is experiencing a lot but on a deep level. When I say deep, I mean a cellular experience or morph experience. It's experiencing it before you can think, see, or hear it. With this method, we are able to do this, and it is a blessing to get so deep that we go beyond the traumas. I have too little experience with trauma, and everyone that comes to dance therapy has their own trauma, but obviously I'm not talking about extensive traumas like from war. From my experience working with someone's trauma, it's always a distorted movement coordination, and the method I'm talking about completes, along with the other methods to do with movement and coordination. Embodiment coincides with the others, or I wouldn't use them. We are able to cure the coordination deficit without touching on emotions and going via the nervous system. I can't say if the trauma can be banished, but the movement deficit that evolved through trauma can be sorted out. I would say it can be helped. The posture then changes and the movement energy changes, and maybe one can pursue the problem and deal with it. On this deeper level, it's practice and pursuit and not expressing, but experiencing an impression. The worse the trauma, the less the person expresses, which is logical. So you can't work with expressions, and people with lighter traumas develop quickly, especially through dance, out of their block. And so with classical dance therapy, it is difficult to deal with traumas. There are other steps that must be completed first. But this coordination work, as you say, changes, and through the flow of movement, you get to expressing things again. It's like going backwards and forwards. So from the outside to the inside, and back from the inside to the outside. Yes, well put. You also mentioned the light body movement. What does that mean for you? That is also a long story. It's really light -body in capital letters. It doesn't mean my body is full of light, but the light, whatever that means, can only be perceived by the physical body. With or without light, I can't make it without having a body on earth. The light is experienced, it can't be captured. And for me, the body is a tool for experience. Light, which isn't physical, can be experienced through the body. That experience is not the same as smelling a flower or being pinched by someone. It's more of a sense. I always say, look at the triple microscope and take your time. It is like a Polaroid and becomes clear through time. Time is not for wanting more and more, because then you become restricted. I have to let myself go. That's another term that requires a definition. I have to open up, and with that comes the fear and preconception. They are all obstacles that stop the perception. And so, at the intersection, micro work is great, and I can go where I'm unsure if it's a thought or if I'm actually moving. And that point is the intersection of light. Do I feel it physically, or dynesthetically, or euphratically? Is it a perception, or is it imagined? There aren't words to describe it. That is perception, and with this mindset and readiness for this level, I can go deep into my body where there aren't obstacles. That is how to get into the light body work. That's what it is for me. In the past few years, it's had different meanings. We were a good group learning about it for 5 years, and it was fun. On my own 7-year-long crisis, I did light bodywork daily to be able to slip into that other level. It was hot and quiet, and nothing was practiced. So it was like a recuperation for you, the way I perceive it. The quiet and protection is something deep within. It's like the universe going into big and small. It needs to be centered, the same regularities. So something very spiritual. What is spirituality for you? Sometimes you get tips by knowing what people understand by it, or what someone usually does every day, and then you can try it out. I differentiate, but I'm also pragmatic. Usual spirituality is awareness on a daily basis, not just running from the living room to the kitchen, but walking and realizing I can breathe better, or being able to think. It's a form of spirituality, the presence in awareness and experience, and that each time. High performance is widely spread. What can you suggest for people who are stressed during their workday, and to get them to take 2 minutes for themselves? Do you have any tips? Kantianica training can be done anywhere and however long you want, and it can be integrated. There are lots of companies that offer company sports. People can go there and exchange different ideas, and I think it's good. When people come to me, be it for dance or movement or light body work, they ask me, how should I practice? And I say, take what you have learned from the classes and use them in your everyday routine. Or you observe your feelings when doing things, like, am I holding anything back while I cross the street? Or how close do I hold my head to the pot while I'm cooking? The surroundings are a crucial aspect to dance therapy. That is my suggestion for everyday training. And then your therapy becomes integrated into your life, and it's not something completely separate, but something you use. And it helps when you have more options throughout the day, be it breathing exercises or just something that will get me to a quiet space where I can recuperate a little. Yes, little things like realizing not to hold the spoon so tight, or it's just milk, it's no problem if it spills. I'm convinced that the everyday stress that we have mainly comes from dysfunctional relationships, or it comes from fear or relationship cuts. And I feel that often we use the wrong energy in different tasks. And I mean physical energy, energetic energy, mental energy. And I'm starting to believe more and more that there is a reason for that. And you know that when you do something stressfully or something very quickly, that you'll have even less time afterwards than when you would take your time to do something and then you do it properly with the awareness that you have. And you always think that relaxation is like wilting, basically. And in my opinion, I don't think that's true. Relaxation means being at ease with yourself and feeling comfortable. And that means realizing how much relaxation do I need to get to that comfortable space without somehow wilting or something else negative. Integrating healthy relaxation into your everyday life helps with your awareness and your reflexes. So this healthy form of relaxation also meaning being present. Yes, that's the same. So basically you're saying, as soon as I feel present, then I'm out of the stress situation. And it has to be well balanced to put it in the form of the back of your body and the front of your body in a balance. So in the middle, you have this presence. Or if I connect the height and the breadth of my body, then I'm even more present. And obviously nutrition is important. Do you have a special sort of nutrition program that you follow, or do you just take it as it comes? What do you do personally, and what do you suggest your customers to do? Yes, nutrition is something that is very special. I'm also working with a nutritionist at the moment, and a change in nutrition also changes the awareness in the body, and changing that means that the body has to somehow come along spiritually and physically. So that's why it's quite difficult, and I never suggest anybody to do anything. So I can tell you how I do it personally. I have tried out a lot of different things in my life, and when I had my life crisis at about 18, 19, it had a lot to do with nutrition. And that happens quickly with dysfunctional hormone treatment. And now I know that my body reacts to natural medicines, and I react quickly to plant-based things, and also typology. Ayurvedic nutrition is something that is very close to me. Ayurvedic nutrition is very simple and also has simple ingredients, which are vegetables, tofu, some fish, rice, and spices. And the Ayurvedic cuisine is based on spices. So I eat very simple food. I don't have 10,000 different things on my plate, and just seeing that, I lose my appetite and I'm unable to eat so much. I think it looks nice, but it's just too much for me, and I like to use my energy for other things than digesting so much food. So basically simplicity, and always more of the same thing. So there's always rice and vegetables, and there's always less fish, and some meat only sometimes because I enjoy the taste of it, but then it will only be a mouthful. So it is more in the direction of vegan nutrition. However, that is not my goal, and I've realized that years ago I used to eat a lot of yogurt and cottage cheese, and I don't really do that anymore. Sometimes a good piece of cheese for an apéro, or a glass of prosecco while cooking, I think is fantastic. I also enjoy having a piece of chocolate. I think it's a really good dessert, and I enjoy doing that. Vegan is a term that can shock people, even though the majority of people mainly eat vegan food. If you have a look at a food plan, you see lots of different vegan meals, and you can also see at which times dairy products, animal products, meat and fish is actually eaten. And I think people that are more aware of themselves and their bodies are the people that tend to eat or are vegan. And sometimes it's actually the people that don't even consciously know that they're eating vegan, hear the word and are frightened by it, even though that is what they're doing. There is always some sort of reaction when someone says that they eat vegan. And I suppose I don't want that stress, because as you said, it is maybe stressful to eat vegan, and I don't want that stress. I think if you are someone that is interested in nutrition and different foods, then you will tend more towards looking after the things that you eat and animals and the clothes that you wear. And something that is becoming more and more important to me is that my groceries are alive. So I can differentiate between a dead cauliflower and a live one. And it tastes better, and my body and my cells enjoy it, and it makes me happy, and I enjoy buying good vegetables. And so that is something that is becoming more and more important to me. I didn't think I would become a person that is that nitpicky, but this is how it is now. So I think there's a lot of awareness involved there as well. What am I doing with myself? Does it suit me? Is it irrelevant to me? Do I take it as it comes? So through awareness and dance and movement, I can discover what I need and what is important to me. And the things that I enjoy and what makes me happy, for example, the glass of Prosecco. If you enjoy it, then, it's just part of it. And we mustn't forget to enjoy things and be happy and not only focus on the depth and the awareness, but just to enjoy life. For me, working on yourself means being at ease with yourself and having that peace and the happiness in everyday life, which I think is very important. By the way, that's something I find very spiritual. It's something I can take my time to observe. With the environment is important to me, and what parts in society are important to me. So by society you mean as a collective. Yes, because society, well, it moves, and so as a dance. Do you also have other projects except for the movement projects? That's a good question, and now I have to see it. New projects are almost something that I can't avoid. I'm also involved in a network of women. There are about 90,000 of us worldwide, even though people don't really know about us. We are organized in lines and we don't have any business prospects, well, at least not for the moment. We are involved in the education of women and children, and as well as their health. And what I also really enjoy, we are a NGO organization, and I am not a political person, and I'm more of an indirect political person, and the things that I do are in that sense related to politics. I think it's great to be a part of such a huge network, and you can go somewhere and tell the club that you're coming, and they're friendly, and you have a caregiver. And I could go to India or France and say that I'm part of the club and ask if anybody else is. And that's something that I think is really lovely. So I would say I'm involved at the moment in a small way. I've been part of that club for about 3 to 4 years, and I do the administrative things in that group. And sometimes it's also nice to just be in the background and observe everything that's going on and these power women. Do you actually have more women or more men that come to your dance therapy? I think you already are guessing an answer to that, but actually the customers, it's very balanced, which is very surprising and actually quite shocking. And on one afternoon, I have 3 men that come the one after another, and it's quite nice for them because then they see and realize, oh, I'm not the only one here. In the embodiment group, the Katienika, I am keeping honored. I used to have a male group, and now that stopped. And a while ago, a man joined again. And yesterday, 2 men came to a lesson, and I think they were really happy. But otherwise, I would say the number of men in the classes is very small. I don't understand. I can explain it, but I don't really understand. So how would you explain it then? I think for men there is still the feeling that dancing is something for women and something that women do. And it used to be that most of the male dancers were homosexuals. And it still is that way, although not as much as it used to be. Homosexuality is being seen as something completely different and in a completely different way now, thank goodness. However, I still think that it has stayed quite deep rooted in the mind. There are lots of male choreographers that choreograph amazing things. So that's how I would explain it. I also think that in our culture and this day and age, women are able to open up. However, men have the need or feel the need to bottle things up and stay very closed to different things. This is not a subject that I am very used to, but I also think that it's something completely new for them, and there is that certain fear of the unknown and that uneasiness about it. I've also experienced a lot of very sensitive or delicate men, and when something gets into that and breaks through, then it can also ruin a lot. There are also lots of people and women who have had a burnout and the same thing happens to them. And I don't want to now go on to thin ice, but yes, that is my explanation. And how would you explain it? Well, my explanation goes in the same direction as hers does, and I would say that there is a certain image that men have of how they should be, or something produced by society, and they should stick to that particular image. And I think this image stands in the way, but it's actually not about men or women, it's about the dance and the movement, and it is given to them for them to use. And I think to do that, one has to be at ease with yourself and accept yourself, which is probably with men a bigger deal than it is with women, which then plays a role in a dance therapy class. It's just something that seems to have stuck in our culture. However, for example, the Asian culture, dance is also important, and it is something that the men do as well. I think in China as well. I'm not sure about China, but I know that in Vietnam and the Far East, they have cultures where the men dance. What I always tell the men and people above the age of 60 is the experts in other countries are a lot older, sometimes even, 85 years old. Do you have a particular life maxim? More and more love in different relationships and situations is becoming important to me. I think mainly the appreciation for things in no matter what relationship, be it at work or something private, or even a Turkish store around the corner that I can go buy a bottle of wine at some strange hour. It's the appreciation. So the appreciation for these things is very quickly becoming more and more important to me. I think I got that kick for it a couple of years ago when I worked in the neurology with the palliative patients. And I listened to a presentation, and I think in that moment when a palliative disease is diagnosed, your priorities suddenly change. The worth of a job decreases a lot, and what a relationship is worth is suddenly 3 times more, and that's something that affected me quite a lot. You shouldn't have to have a lethal disease that suddenly makes those changes and makes it more important. So there was that gave me that boost, and also in conflict situations sometimes a bit stronger and sometimes less. It's good to realize that the origin of the conflict most of the time is a communication problem. And I realize that a lot of time and energy can be saved by working on these communication problems and understanding each other. And I think this can also be achieved by, and now bringing it full circle, achieving this awareness with myself, and I can then appreciate different things in different relationships and save myself time and energy for better things. So that is something that is important to me. It always changes, but at the moment that's the biggest. And so with this awareness, I can now enjoy more. So I enjoy things like going for a cup of coffee with a friend. I enjoy and appreciate much more now than I did 10 years ago. And now I realize, if you have an afternoon off and you say, let's go have a cup of coffee together, that it makes me happy and it's something I feel physically and emotionally, and that is, to come back to nutrition, it's like feeding the soul. So that is definitely my maxim. And of course, the entire topic of awareness. There's a whole other story to awareness that I experienced at gymnastics school. And so it's taken many years to get to a basic maxim that I'm comfortable with, and that's why I can now enjoy things so much more. So thank you very much for this lovely conversation and for showing us how important awareness is and having that contact and connecting the body and soul. Thank you. And thank you to you as well. Thank you.